Hello everybody, welcome back. Unversed Podcast, Danny here, and today we are talking about Alita, Battle Angel Alita, however you pronounce it, Gundam. A lot of names for this manga. The reason, I actually pushed it up, from where it was on the list. Main reason was because, February is, the live action movies coming out, and I'm actually hyped for that movie, honestly. Just seeing, the recent trailers for it, I was like, wow, this looks really good. And, I've never read Alita before. And I was like, you know what? I should probably read this before the movie comes out, so I have a basis and understanding of what this world is, right? And how, different the live action adaptation would be for this, especially with all the controversy about it, mainly with just, Alita's eyes being too big. But, honestly, I was a little bothered by it at first, but then after watching a couple trailers, you kind of get used to it. So there was really, not a lot of stuff going on as far as, me trying to hate this, plus I think I only saw like 2 trailers before I started reading, and, then I watched the latest trailer, and then, really appreciating what is happening in the movie based on what the manga has brought forth, to me anyways. So, I am very hyped for that movie. Hopefully we can review it here. If not, we will probably be reviewing it over on Marvel Talk, as the rest of the cast over there is very hyped as well. So, we'll see where that goes. So yeah, finally read it for the first time. Stunning artwork. This is definitely during the boom of this genre, right? Cyberpunk in a sense. Surprisingly, only 53 chapters. However, there are some side stories involved that are a few more chapters, but still, 53 chapters for the main plot, and that is something, I wasn't expecting. I was expecting a lot more than that, and, just to see it happen here, I was like, okay, yeah, sure, why not? It's kind of fine. My only problem with it being short is the fact that the escalation of the plot, right, as we further progress into the story, we sort of accelerate the momentum Alita has into going further into this world and trying to understand what this world is about. Because this world is one of those cyberpunk stories where it is vastly different and almost unrealistic from what can possibly happen in the real world, right? Basically, the world just took a shit and everybody's just living on the remains of what's left. It's one of those classic versions of cyberpunk where it's like, oh, here's ancient technology, right? Stuff that's been lost for hundreds of years, right? The classic one is Trigun. He uses ancient technology here and there. One of the surprising ones is he uses like an MP3 player listening to music through headphones. That's considered lost technology. So here it's there, just the scale is much bigger, as in the whole world became lost technology, and here we are starting over. And, we start off with the doctor, right, who discovers Alita, rescues her, sees her brain still intact, and decides to revive her in a sense, quote unquote. And, just kind of treat her like a daughter, names her Alita based off of, I think it was like a dead cat that just passed away not that long ago, from Ido's standpoint. And, that's pretty much the premise, right? She just grows up to be known as Alita, trying to understand who she is because her memories are lost. And she just, herself thrusted into this insane world where it takes many directions. It was very cliche of it to be a manga at a point when she leaves for the first time from Dr. Ido's presence, right? And Ido's trying to find her, and it's been, I want to say, I think a year or 3 years at this point. And then we find her, she's doing the sports section, right? Inventing a new game, in a sense, into this manga. Classic ones is like Hunter x Hunter when it involved like the Green Island stuff. And, it's just the typical thing mangas tend to do here and there. It's like, oh, let's derive from what we're doing as the main plot and focus more on this new sports thing that we just made up, which was fine. It came out with some cool action, stunning artwork, and very considerable character growth that was important. So I felt it was fine. What was it? Motor racing, I believe it was, where cyborgs just equip themselves with legs, skating legs, I guess, and then they just race, right? And then the whole point is to capture the ball and get to the end of the finish line. However, people also find this opportunity to just fight to the death most of the time in this world. And that is where Alita's left off initially. And then we get more time skips and more insane scenarios from which Alita never imagined she probably would have been in. But because of her old memories of her life on Mars, and she just can't, sit back and do nothing when she has these abilities, a classic hero trope. It goes into some crazy stuff, and that's where the escalation comes in, right? Especially towards the second half. The second half escalates pretty quick. I don't know if that was just the author's intention or the fact that maybe they were running out of time for it. But yeah, it pretty much scales pretty fast here and there, So, again, the visuals is amazing, right? Artwork is stunning for its time. A lot of classic stuff that we see around this era of when Alita came out. And, yeah, it took a lot of good screenshots. The storytelling is pretty good, my only problem is, I think, there was one point where Alita, this is towards like the second half of the manga, Alita meets a character called Figure 4, I believe his name is. And they fall in love, and she wants to be with him. And that was pretty fast paced, right? The relationship that was created between them. I mean, sure, you could see it there. There are definitely attributes that Alita liked, but I didn't feel like there was enough time for them to be like, oh, they love each other. They want to be with each other, this and that. I don't know. That's just me. I think the most interesting parts of this manga were definitely what was going on with Alita and what she was dealing with and what she's fighting. But also when we took a step back and like really got into the backgrounds of characters like Dr. Ido, for example. We had like a side story with him way before he met Alita. This is when he entered the scrapyard very early on in his life and learning cyber what did they call it? It was basically just because he's was it like a surgeon or whatever? He's a doctor, right? But for humans, not for cyborgs. And the story pertained to him learning how to care for cyborgs and to master the work of being a doctor for cyborgs and all that. That was some interesting stuff. And towards the end, I was really hoping we got a side story with this Figure 4 character post waiting for Alita, because he just shows up years later. He's got a beard, and like you could clearly tell he's significantly stronger as a human character, because it's like, oh, what, a human fighting a cyborg? Yeah, right. And whipping their asses because he's using chi and all that. I would love to see his journey leading up to him going back to the scrapyard trying to find Alita. That would have been some interesting stuff. And a lot of moral questions, of course, are in here. It's cyberpunk, it's almost a given to see that here, especially with the way this world is set up, right? We have the scrapyard, which is just where a majority of the humans live, right? It's just this very poor section of the world where cybernetics is pretty much the main aspect of it, right? There's a lot of cyborgs, a lot of robots here and there. But then there's this floating city in the sky called Tifaris. I think I'm pronouncing that wrong. But that's where these elite humans live, right? And Dr. Ido was one of them before he got banned. and then we get a reveal, like one of the secrets of this place, and the consequences has for revealing this to people who've had this done to them. And we get a little backstory into why this place was built and what happened to it since then. And I think I do want more out of this, right? I really just want more backstory to it, because for me personally, when we get into a world that's so destroyed and damaged as this place, I always feel like I want to know the origin of what happened here. Like it's cool seeing this stuff post events, right? Like the time setting the lead is in, people are already comfortable with this world. But what happened before that, where the lost technology, quote unquote, comes from? I always think that's some interesting stuff. And we get very little insight on that. And, it's just a typical thing when it comes to these types of mangas and the type of story it's telling. So in a sense, it's not disappointing. It's more of just like, man, wouldn't it be cool if we got a backstory about maybe when they first built this Tafares place or whatever, I think that kind of stuff would be interesting. But other than that, everything else is pretty solid. Alita as a character, she kind of has 2 to 3 modes of emotions. And I don't know, sometimes it feels appropriate to the story, and sometimes I feel like, okay, this kind of, I guess this makes sense because of what she's been doing. Especially towards the end, she becomes an agent of these people, and we find out it's been 10 years she's been doing this. And that's when she's starting to lose her humanity in a sense, by where like, oh, I'm enjoying killing. I get the adrenaline rush when I fight. That's my only purpose for living, aside from getting revenge and trying to find this doctor who promised me this and that. And, aside from all that crazy stuff, I think she is a fine character. She doesn't really change much. She just matures in a sense. So that was some good stuff. And it was also interesting to see her, in a sense, experience things for the first time. Like when she first fell in love with this character, Hugo, who, is a main character, I guess, in the movie, which is a bit confusing I'm interested to see what they're trying to do with Hugo, seeing he's on the posters. I've seen him in, I think, all the trailers. So I'm hoping they don't ruin his character, because his character is interesting. And, it's also a big point for this manga, for Alita, is that there's a lot of tragedy involved in here, right? Whether it's based off of what the world did to them, or their current situation, or what Alita did personally. There's a lot of tragic things that happen to characters, and the repercussions do come forth at some point eventually, right? Even to a character that we see very early on. I wouldn't have thought he was going to be important. I was like, he's clearly the type of character that's going to be setting an example of how strong Alita is. And then for him to come back not once, but twice, or maybe even 3 times into the series, was definitely surprising. And just to see his story unfold and develop in such a tragic way was very interesting. I thought it was some good quality stuff. And I think other than that, that's all I really have to say, I think, about Alita. There's definitely a lot of interesting stuff. Characters are written really solid. Character progression is also an interesting thing. We don't really get a lot of characters outside of Alita and Ido that really grow. I think there is like maybe 1 or 2 more, right? Who aren't antagonists. And, the gap in between the last time we saw them to when we see them again is very, very far apart, so there's also that aspect. Like, well, of course they have to change, especially one of them is just a little girl when we last saw her. And then we see her now. She's older, and, she's learning so many more things and all that crazy stuff. So, definitely recommend Alita Battle Angel Alita, however you pronounce it. You'll find it if you just type, basically Alita anywhere you go. And I can't wait for the movie. I definitely want to see what they're going to do. Their choice in CG is also interesting. I think it adds another layer to the film, give it its own charm compared to what these other CG movies in the blockbuster section are doing, right? Like Transformers, for example, there's a lot of machinery involved in Alita, and to see them go this route in the CG, I think is a smart choice. So again, I'm definitely looking forward to the movie coming out in maybe a month plus from now, as of this recording. And so hopefully we'll be reviewing that here. If not, I think we'll be reviewing it on Marvel Talk. So stay tuned for that. And if there's any noise in the background, I apologize. I'm actually recording this at Anime Los Angeles. We're here right now. It's been great so far, and can't wait for the rest of the days and just to see what's going on, all the goodness and everything like that. And hopefully we see some of you guys there. We would have posted on the, the social media, Unversed Podcast. If you don't follow already, go check it out, to stay updated on the latest episodes. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, go ahead and email us at unversedpodcast@gmail.com. Would love to hear feedback. Particularly, are you excited on the new Alita live action movie? It's, because I believe the last live action North American release was Ghost in the Shell, and where I love it, a lot of people didn't. So I'm interested to see what the ratio is this time for Alita Battle Angel. Because honestly, the only controversy I've really heard is just her eyes are big. And that's kind of it. So we'll see. We'll see where it goes. Hopefully it does really well. I want it to do really well. Mainly maybe just to get the sequel, because in the last trailer we got for the movie, they are changing some stuff up. But then I see the final fight and I'm like, oh, that's not even the final fight in the manga. And yeah, try to, compact so many villains, this and that, I can understand. But yeah, interest in the movie again. And be on the lookout. That's Unversed Podcast. Anywhere you go on social media again. If you don't follow already. Thanks for listening, everybody. That's pretty much all I really have to say. If I have more thoughts, I think I will save them for the movie. Yeah, that's it, guys. Thanks for listening. As always, I know we've been slacking on the episodes. Honestly, I've just been busy. I've been kind of trying to relax when I can. And hopefully post ALA, we'll definitely have time for more episodes. Hopefully we're planning to do at least 2 more while we're at the convention, while we got the guys and the mic and all that. So hopefully that pops up, and be on the lookout for that anywhere you get your podcasting, YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, SoundCloud, or just grab that RSS feed on the website, and links in the description and all that. And yeah, hard drive is still kind of messed up. So, just enjoy the outro for now, with some good music. And that is all again, guys. Thanks for listening, and we will talk to you next time.
The be-alls. Most of me is so flawed, Lord, what's the deal? This is not ideal. Perhaps I could just heal if you break me into pieces. Break me into pieces. I don't like the be-all, the be-alls. Most of me is so flawed, Lord, what's the deal? This is not ideal. Perhaps I could just heal if you break me into pieces. Break me into pieces. I wake up and I die again. Go to sleep, rain that the cycling. I know I'm weak, but in my defense, my demise within is like inner cyanide vitamins. I'm excited for silence, but when silence comes chiming in, echoing these demons inside me, I'm just signed. The science is grim, defining this defiance isn't practical. I need a pinch. Wake me up, break me up, and compile me again. Put me back together from the smiles of pretend. Make me better, hide my shadows and my sides that look dim. Make me into someone out with a knife from again. Delightful difference, insightful the nights who surprise us with wins. Undeniably refined and reliable. wish I could depend on not breaking every little thing I hold highly again. Why can I not be the person I describe with my pen?